Hello and welcome. We are just going to give everyone a few minutes to get in. I am going to take a look at everybody.
To make sure the
And
chat's up and running
yes,
properly.
you know what? If anyone has joined our webinars before, they'll know that
Mhm.
I always have a little problem with the chat, but I went in the back end and tried to fix it. So hopefully it
Oh
is
yeah, it's
working
good.
now.
It's all good.
Yay. Okay, so we
You
can
did
chat. You're
it.
welcome to say hello. Tell us where
Mm-hmm.
you're coming from. Tell us what the weather's like where you are. We always love talking about the weather.
Mm-hmm.
It went from being beautiful and sunny here this morning
Mm-hmm.
to not so nice
It's terrible
right
where I
now.
am. I was
Oh,
just telling Amy before. I don't know. You might even see flashes. It's actually flash lightning here. It's pouring and lightning in the
oh
middle
no.
of. Well, I guess it's February now. I was going to say the middle of January. I've lost a month in
You've
there.
lost your sense of
I've
time.
lost some time. Yeah,
So we all
but
know that if we lose Sherry,
yes,
then it's because of the weather. Kamara's on the line. I'm going to
yeah.
introduce you in a minute, Kamara, too. Hey, and
Mhm.
Amy O'Neill. Hi, Amy. So good to see you. It's been a long time. I forget how long it's been since we spoke to Amy, like maybe two years, 18 months
Wow.
or something, Amy.
Time
Uh,
flies.
yeah, but
Mhm.
everyone can feel free to talk in the chat. We always love, yeah, Amy, it's been
Been
a
a
minute.
minute.
Yes, that is true. But we're going to get started because I want to make sure that we are keeping on track and on time.
Mhm.
We're just really happy to have you here. I'm really excited about this session. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited about it, sorry, I have this thing with the slides. I don't know. I touch something and everything goes. But I'm so excited. I'm just going to start, even though we're not starting yet. Um, One of the reasons I'm so excited, there's sort of an overarching theme, which I'm going to touch on as we go. And I'll explain in a bit. But this all of our sessions, we really like you to be able to leave and do something with the content that you've seen. And I think that in this session we'll have a few things that you could try and apply as you're kind of getting off this call. It might give you an idea or give you a strategy to make a difference almost right away.
Mhm.
So that is one of the things I'm excited about, and
So,
I'm
so
also really
Amy,
excited. Yeah.
you know what then? We should tell
Yeah,
our participants that when you register for a webinar with us, then book time in your calendar right after to start implementing.
right. That's true. So yeah, get book that time after every first 30
Yeah.
webinar, any webinar with Sherry and I to start getting your plan together. That's really good advice. So for anyone who hasn't joined us before and doesn't know what First 30 does, one of the things we do is we offer outplacements. We know that 92% of companies are actually going through layoffs this year, believe it or not. We're
Wow.
seeing it a lot with our business. It's really picked up. So if you need support, even if you don't need support right away, you can always book some time with me. And I'm happy to chat with you, give you an idea of how we work, and then you can decide when you're ready. We don't put any pressure on anyone. We're always happy to connect with our network, and we can walk you through what that participant experience is going to be like. Kamara Toffolo is on the call today. She's in the chat. She runs our outplacement program, so you can also private message her if you want as well. Really happy to have her join the First 30 team. And as you can see, we're really transparent and consistent with our pricing. We're a little bit different than some more traditional outplacement in that way, and our costs are we try to keep them as low as possible, but to create the most engaging and effective experience for your exiting employees. So you're always welcome to talk to us about that. And of course, I think I skipped over my onboarding slide, but of course we do onboarding too. We're going to talk about that at the end. We help set up automated programs for onboarding. But just in terms of housekeeping, I get asked this question all the time as we're going. I see it furiously coming up in the chat. Yes, we are recording this session, and yes, you will get a copy in a week. You'll get a copy of the recorded session. You can look for Brent in the comments as well. He is there to help. He's also joined the team, so he's going to be in the chat, answering any questions you might have, and then also sharing any links that we mentioned, because we're going to mention some free resources today, which you can refer to as well.
And if anybody does have a specific question, put it in the chat or use the Q&A function. That's easy for us to follow as well.
Yeah, you're always, and if you if you see funny messages coming up from me to someone specific, it's because someone has messaged me privately in the chat and I thought they messaged everyone, and then I just respond to everyone. That's why you need help on the chat.
Exactly.
So what I wanted to kind of kick off with, and Sherry, you know all about this. I mean, Sherry has such extensive experience working with organizations on everything HR, and particularly with onboarding. But onboarding is one of those things, right, that everyone talks about. And they say, oh, yes, I mean, it's something we need to work on. And yeah, it wasn't the best experience when I joined. Or even if it's a great experience, there's some things that could make the lives of the people leaders easier, could make the lives of HR way easier. And we miss that point for so many organizations where we actually implement some of these changes. And what we're trying to do by running these sessions is close that gap for our network and help them take what is anecdotal feedback almost in the organization and turn it into something meaningful and actually help them to be able to make meaningful change in their organization. So I don't know if you had anything to add to this, Sherry, but I see this a lot. I've even seen this myself in organizations that I've been part of, when I've joined or when I'm bringing on new members of my team, that it's like this known thing that onboarding isn't quite right, but then it's like it never really changes.
It's always just a little disconnected, I think. And so to have somebody own it and have, not that everything needs to be centralized, but to have a centralized reference point or a centralized committee, so to speak, I think is where the benefit really comes, because now you're understanding the experience across the board. Otherwise, people are getting not very individualized and, manager dependent experiences. And that becomes a challenge. So
a huge challenge, because as you've said so many times before to me and in these sessions, some of our people leaders are excellent at being people leaders. They're excellent at bringing on new hires. They do it pretty regularly. And some of our people leaders, like you said to me before, it's like 4 years can go by and then they don't onboard anybody, right?
Exactly.
So, one of the things that we thought would help close that gap in terms of our first hack, and we talked about this a bit before, so I'm not going to go on and on about it. And we do have a resource that we can share if you want it. I haven't actually got it. Brent doesn't actually have the link for this one, but we have a slide deck all about making the case for investment in employee onboarding. But there is this, we can talk about the emotional side and how people feel. That really does matter. It matters to us in HR. But sometimes how people are feeling doesn't really matter as much when you're in a leadership position and a little more disconnected from it. What matters really are the numbers. And to me, this is a big one. And again, I think companies are really bad at tracking this data. And there's more that we're going to discuss it. I think they're really bad at tracking, and it's because it's all over the business, right? It's like this department isn't necessarily coming together with this department, and the costs of losing all these people aren't being brought into one centralized place. So we know that we lose a lot of hires within the first 6 months. And I always say, if someone's interviewing with your organization, they're probably interviewing with many, many more. And accepting an offer, I think when we were younger, Sherry, and starting out, it was like, you've accepted that offer, you took that really, really seriously. But in a world of like online dating and doing all these different, transactional things online, you start to feel a little less committed and seeing the more options available to you. Yeah, we could do a whole session on comparing jobs
Online.
in the
Yeah.
transactional world of
Yeah.
online dating
Yeah.
now.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So, we know that it is expensive when we lose hires in general. This doesn't necessarily connect to new hires, but in general, it's very expensive. And
Hmm.
again, what I would do is if you want to figure out the actual cost of the business, you're never going to come up with an exact number. But if you're looking to make an investment or get resources allocated to refreshing or revamping your onboarding program, one of the things that you could do is just calculate your time as HR. How much time did it take you? What did you pay a recruiter if you paid that recruiter? Because we know after a certain amount of time, before a certain amount of time, we don't have to pay them. But after a certain amount of time, we do. So even if
Hmm.
looking within the first year, if you lost someone, I would say that could be connected to employee onboarding. So think
Definitely.
about how much does it cost you? How much does it cost IT? Like we know that we can reuse the equipment, but it's their time, right? And then how much are we missing by not having them there? So Sherry, is there anything I'm missing in terms of costs if we lose
Well,
the hire?
yeah, and it might not, you may not be able to quantify this in terms of cost, but one thing that I often talk about when we're looking at ROI of onboarding is speed to productivity. And so what I mean by that is how fast can you get someone in the door and then actually operating at a successful level within their role? And this is where I think HR people can really make a case for onboarding, because if through a thorough onboarding process, you can reduce that by 2 weeks, by 2 months, by whatever the case might be, you can really then add significant value into the organization. So I often think of it in terms of speed to productivity.
Yeah.
And I think you can make really good cases around that. Without an effective onboarding program, we're seeing at the 3-month check-in, people are not fully effective. We're seeing at the 6-month check-in, people are not fully effective. We're seeing at the whatever the case might be.
Mhm.
If you can reduce that, even if it's just your data is that kind of, feedback from the participants, I think that's
Yeah.
enough to make a case.
Yeah.
So,
To make a case. Yeah.
mhm,
And it is really great to have that. And then as much as we can quantify it, even if they're kind of round numbers a little bit, it will help make
mhm.
the case so much. But in the slide deck that I keep mentioning, that I'm so sorry, I didn't even think to share the link, but you can message me after and I'm happy to have it sent over to you, where you can see that it's by person depending on their income each year. We kind of done a rough calculation, which will maybe help you to do the calculation if you decided to do it. And we know that effective onboarding is proven to have an impact on reducing that new hire
Mhm.
turnover.
Mhm.
And you will see it in your organization. If anyone here has really taken a good look and made some impactful changes, then they will see that it does make a huge difference. And I've talked about it ad nauseum, so I'm not going to talk about it again today, but it's a lot to do with what was going on cognitively and that imprinting experience that we have when we first engage with a new stimulus, which includes a new employer. Cognitively, it can make, we can't change people's brains, right? Yet. But we're working on it, but we can change what we do. When I think about how onboarding programs are designed, how they're refreshed and revamped,
Mhm.
this is the vision I have. It's like one amazing person working away, getting all the information, trying their best to make a big difference. And this makes me sad when I see this, because what I think it should look like is this. It should look like multiple teams coming together, resources. Like Sherry, you were saying at the beginning that you have some people leaders that are amazing. And guess
Yep.
what? Those people leaders probably created their own resources. Uh,
Yes.
and who
Yes,
knows what
it's
those look
true.
like?
Mhm.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that we are bringing everybody together. Sherry and I have done this with clients before. We've called it a gap analysis, where we go into an organization and figure out what they have floating around everywhere, and then
Mhm.
one team can bring it all together, but we shouldn't put the weight of the onboarding world on one individual or one team's shoulders. And I always love what you say, Sherry, we're spending so much time together. I can quote you, and I often do, but you say how you talk about how culture shouldn't be owned by one team or one individual. And this is such a great example of that. Not one team owns culture, right? As you always say. So, um, so the second hack, and sorry if I missed anything, Sherry, you're welcome to add
Well, you know
your.
what, I must confess, I've got this massive storm and you froze for a second and I thought I didn't know if it was you or me. So I apologize to everybody. If Amy asks Sherry chime in and I'm not chiming in, it's because I'm in the middle
She's
of a
actually
massive
just
storm.
frozen
Yeah.
there. Well, what I was saying, Sherry, is that you always mention how culture isn't owned by one
Yes,
department,
yes.
and I would say the onboarding program, yes, it can be led by HR, and yes, HR has a significant role to play, but it's not all on the shoulders of HR. You need so many other teams to make it an amazing experience
Yes,
and to have
absolutely.
buy-in and to have accountability. So the second hack is don't work alone, engage other people in the organization. And this to me is such a big theme just in general that I really want people walking away feeling. It's like, yes, I might be bringing all the different parts together, but it's not all on me. I need to work with others.
And actually, I don't know if you did say this, Amy, but the other group to consider when we're thinking about bringing people together is getting the experience of individuals who have just recently been hired. So you're looking at what were their experiences. Maybe there's people who were hired 10 years ago, and what are they experiencing working with new people coming on board? Where are they
Mm-hmm.
seeing the gaps in
Mm-hmm.
skill, performance, knowledge, whatever it is? So really thinking about it as a full 360 view of the organization, I think is quite critical and very helpful.
Yeah, and there's certain information we're just not going to have. Like if we have a
Yeah.
business that has multiple different regions, we're not going to know maybe what happens or where offices are. Well, we probably will know where offices are, but we may not know all the details of every
Hmm.
region. So we really will need help. It's
Hmm.
great to educate people about the whole business, not just their little piece of it, because we want people, new hires, thinking end to end.
Yes.
Hack three, I'm like, what
Dot,
is
dot,
hack three? What are
dot.
these dots?
Stay tuned.
Well, here it is.
Oh.
Something is better than nothing. And so, what I mean by that is, and we're going to talk a little bit about running pilots in your organization. And we actually have a pilot I'm going to talk to you about at the end that you can partner with us on if you want. But really, what we found even when we've implemented onboarding programs in people's organization, yes, it's incredible to have an automated, repeatable program. That's amazing.
Yes.
But just the fact that the new hire knows that you have done something makes such an extraordinary difference to how they feel. And when I talk about, the what's going on cognitively with us, how
Hmm.
we feel really matters. It really makes a huge difference to our long-term success or short and long-term success with a new employer. And it doesn't have to be first 30s program. Anything you do, like we've talked in the past about buddy programs and
Hmm.
pre-boarding programs. Just doing something, even if it's something simple, can be make such a difference.
Hmm.
Sherry, did you
I've
have
got,
anything?
I do. I have 2 points here to add. The first one is I think what's important, especially if you sit in an HR seat or a support role of some sort, and you're not the manager who's onboarding. I do think it's really critical for us all to remember that managers are busy. So the more that we can equip them with the tools and set them up
Mm-hmm,
for success, the better off
mm-hmm,
it'll be. And also don't forget, they might not have done this for 4 years and they've been understaffed while they're looking for
mm-hmm,
somebody to fill a vacancy, unless it's a new role. Even then, they're understaffed because they're adding a role for a reason.
mm-hmm,
And then the other thing that I think it's important to remember here is we always talk of onboarding really in terms of two different sections. So there's the orientation part of it, and then there's the on-the-job training part of it. So when you're saying something is better than nothing, so true in both those components. So the on-the-job training part of it is often the part that slips through because that is the part that goes into the manager's hands. But even if you think about giving a little tool with the job description and you think about it in two columns, what, how, like what do they need to learn and how can they learn it? And you give that piece of paper to the manager or even to the team member for self-directed, it makes them think that you care, right? It demonstrates care, and it also gives them some direction to understand what they don't know.
And
So
in today's world of restructuring and economic tension, it feels uncomfortable to join an organization that doesn't feel organized at all.
yes,
And that your onboarding can be a big part of that. And people are more likely to leave an organization they don't feel is stable, I think. Like,
yep,
obviously there's a million reasons why you might stay or a million reasons why you might leave. I do think
yep,
one of them is, hey, I'm not sure I'm safe here. Like,
right,
not, and I don't even mean, because we talk a lot about psychological safety, but I don't think my financial future and my career is safe
right.
business, because everyone seems really nice, things seem to be going okay, but there's this gap, and I'm not comfortable with how this is going. And if this is how they're handling onboarding, where else are things going wrong?
You know what's coming to my head is, am I being set up for success?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, I think, what you're really getting at is, are you setting the person up for success? And these little tiny tools and this, a little bit of structure and organization goes a very, very long way.
Yes, yeah. So always remember that even if you're doing something small and something simple and you're just running a little pilot or trying something new with a new team, that little something you're doing is better than nothing, and it is going to make a difference. I just want to let the person know who asked a question. I am going to answer that question at the end.
Oh,
So don't
good. With
worry,
the
it's
stat?
coming up.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Yep.
I actually have a slide for it, so it will
Oh,
be there
perfect.
and it will stay in your mind. So don't worry. I haven't missed you. um, so number 4 is, so a lot of my career was actually in marketing, and I learned a lot about how we react, how our brain responds to different stimulus, because a lot of the things that I tested were ads and logos and visual things, right? So I know that some people might think it's strange to talk about a consistent look and feel. It's like, oh, well, we have all these resources. We'll just put them together in a file and just deliver them out. Like, even with contracts might be a little bit different, because I don't know that you're going to be putting your logos all over contracts. But when you think of the overall experience, little things, I know it sounds silly, but little things, even like font, like think
Yes.
about it. If we put this presentation together for you and it was not well put together, every slide looked like it was from a different company, things just were like blurry and didn't look good, how would you feel about working with Sherry and I, right? You know that when I look at, like, Sherry, your organization, which I didn't talk about at all, I didn't actually introduce you at
That's
the beginning,
okay.
but Sherry runs an amazing consulting firm called Loft Consulting. And when I look at Loft on LinkedIn, you have beautiful posts. And if you don't follow Sherry on LinkedIn, and actually Brent has her LinkedIn URL, so you can add that, Brent, but her organization Loft does a lot of great updates, and they look beautiful, right? All of the,
Thank you.
but if they didn't, how would we feel about Sherry and her work, right? And it's the same thing when it comes to our onboarding resources. We want them to look similar to each other. We want them to look really well thought out, to have nice images. I notice, like, sometimes when we look at people's onboarding materials, they're like clip art. It looks like it was done in the 1990s. It's terrible. And what is it saying? What message are you communicating about your organization when you use those materials? And
You know
Sherry,
what's
I think,
important here, Amy,
yeah.
is this is the experience. This This is all about the experience. And it's interesting. Am an HR consultant to an events organization. They do events production. And somebody there was talking about the events and said, it's like if you're creating an enchanted forest feel, and then you sit down for dinner and there's like a pine tree in the middle, or not, that's actually too good. Something that's like totally not related to an enchanted forest, maybe like a shark on the center of a table or something like that. And it's like, hey, wait a second, something doesn't feel right. Something's off. That might be so obvious that you can pinpoint it, but there's some examples where it's just a little off, and it. And you said this to me, this creates trust. This is a
Yeah.
trust
Oh, yeah. That's my next
building.
slide too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you go ahead.
No, it's fine. It does. It creates trust. It makes people feel like they can trust you. And again, it's like if you meet the same person and they seem like three different people each time you meet them, that's weird, right? It's the same with, it sounds silly, but it is the same with your resources. Like, who is this organization? It's like, Sherry, you do a ton of engagement work, and you and I have collaborated on a few things in terms of values for organizations, and you've run amazing workshops on those. So when you ask people in an organization and nobody knows what the values of the organization is, or they tell you something different, then it does make you question, right? You do have trouble in terms of trust. So that's definitely something to consider. So if again, we want you to walk away and have something to kind of do to make a difference. So one of the things you could do is look at what are the onboarding resources that people are receiving, and how similar or different do they look from each other? And what could you do really simply to make sure they have the same font, the same logo on each? Sometimes we go through rebranding exercises and we transform our brand, and then it's like the old brand in the new hires package, and there's different logos. So
subconsciously, don't you think that says this isn't important?
Right. Yeah. And for what there are some for sure, but a lot of organizations, especially for-profit organizations, branding does matter. And if it doesn't, it should. But some organizations just don't prioritize it in the same way as others, but they should, in my opinion, prioritize it. So it absolutely should matter. I do think having the consistency does help in terms of the learning process. It does help us learn better when we know what we're looking at. And actually, one of the funny things with our program, and I've kind of, that's why part of the reason I want to run this pilot at the end that I'm going to talk about. Some of our clients will launch a platform that's one of our first 30 platform that's all branded with their business, which that's great. But what we found over time is that employees look at it and it looks like everything else, like so much like their intranet site, they forget where to go to find the resources, like to get back onto their onboarding program, because everything looks so similar. So whatever you have in place, you might want to add a logo or something that indicates this is an onboarding resource somehow, even if it's using a specific color from your brand palette to put on your onboarding materials. So they're like, oh yes, this is an onboarding material. It's not just something that has to do with everything else. And it will help with memorability as well.
Creating an onboarding logo, even, we've done that, which I think is really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, it's just consistency. People know what to recognize. They know what they're looking at. They know your brand. They understand your business. And like I said, it makes this is a funny one too, because it's like you can say this, and I think once you start talking about it more and more, people will intellectually understand it. But overall, it's a feeling, which is kind of be hard to articulate, right?
Yes, it is. But you can think back on experiences where you can know this to be true.
Exactly. Yeah. And you want to know that you're grounded in something. Like when I look at Loft's updates on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh, right away, I see it. I don't even need to see the name. I'm like, yep, that's Loft, right? And I hope and if you don't, please tell me, when you look at First 30, it's our brand is pretty distinctive, so that I hope when you look at our content that you don't even need to see the logo to know that it's First 30. You just get the feeling that it is. Okay, so running a pilot, I mean, I love the idea of running pilots because there's so many things you can do with a pilot. As I said earlier, Sherry and I ran a whole session on buddy programs, right? Which was very highly attended. People love buddy programs and they love pre-boarding. So those are two low-hanging fruit where you can start a pilot program in one team and see what difference it makes.
Yes.
So say you can partner with your marketing department, because they may have an opportunity. Marketing departments tend to be larger, and they have people who may want to, and they sadly tend to have a lot of turnover as well. So that could be a great place to start, to have a buddy program set up. So you have someone, by buddy program, I mean, when you onboard a new hire, have their manager set them up with a buddy who can call them the week before, who can help them get going, who can answer any questions they might have. And that could be a great way to demonstrate that that program could be spread across the organization because it was so impactful. So if you take one area and then if it goes really well, you have credibility to get more investment or more resources to make other refreshes with your onboarding program as a whole.
You know what I love about your recommendation there, Amy, is two parts. The first one is this is a way to start small. So at, you know, the make do something that's better than doing nothing. So this is something, right?
Yes.
And then the second piece is that you're looking to where you might not otherwise be able to have data. Now you're looking to have some data points. And both of those things, it's easy to bite off. It's small in terms of the pilot group size. It's small in terms of one change, one difference maker. So I would say, you know, buddies is a great one. And think about in your own organization, where is there a gap? What is one thing that I can do differently and create a small pilot program around that one thing and then collect data around it?
Yeah, absolutely. And like the data in this case can really be your friend, because and then you can, one of the things that you could do, although this is getting a little heavy in terms of like just even your time investment, is you could interview new hires that had started with a buddy and get them to like do a little video of like, how did it make a difference? What did you think about when you started? And I can tell you those buddy programs, they make a world of difference. And you'll hear people talking about them, which makes such, you know, it's so nice to hear when that happens. So if we want to look at some other, sorry, I've got something in my way here. You know, when you're on a Zoom call and you're running a webinar,
you're moving,
you have
the
all
pictures.
these pop-ups everywhere.
So
if you see me
I had to move you.
Things, pardon me?
I moved you.
Oh, out of the way. Get her out. I see her enough. So these are some of the benefits of running a pilot program. Just it requires less approvals, which is always a good thing, especially in large, complex organizations. If you're a smaller organizations, a smaller organization, you may not have this barrier. Low cost. You have the opportunity to experiment as entrepreneurs. Sherry and I, like, that's what you spend your life doing. You run different experiments and you see what happens. You have the opportunity to seek feedback, and the feedback, as Sherry was saying, that is going to be a really great way for you to learn. Listen, it might not go well, and then you're going to learn from that.
That's a good point. You have to, and that's actually the most important, is the mindset going in. So sometimes we're so invested in our own ideas. So I love that point, because that's really important going in.
Yeah. And if anyone else has any ideas just in terms of little pilot projects people can run for onboarding, feel free to put them in the chat. And I should have said this up front. One of the wonderful things I've noticed about our webinars is that people tend to share with each other. So don't be shy if you have a great idea. or even if you have a question for the group, please feel free to put it in the chat, and anyone can answer. You know, we're all experts here, and it's great to have your input. So hack number 6, I'm going to caveat this one, okay? So check in. However, it's not all about you as HR checking in. I say it's coaching plus check-ins, because from all of my experience in HR, I see amazing, amazing people in HR. And one thing I see that I don't like is that HR takes on so much and feels accountable for so much. And they forget that piece that's the coaching piece, even though so many of them are amazing coaches. So coaching people leaders to do their check-ins is also a really great way to help your employee or your business partners become better at what they do, become better people leaders. And it also takes a little bit of the burden off of HR. Yes, HR should check in. You know, if you have a business unit that you kind of are responsible for, it is nice if you have the time to check in with each of your new hires within the first month. But I do think it is even better if you can teach your managers not just how to do it, but how important it is.
Yeah.
Because in a time where we're seeing so much turnover, I think that, like, if I remember my days in corporate, the one-to-one with your manager was always the thing that got deprioritized if something came up, right? And then not scheduled. And then you wouldn't even eat with. Well, you may have met them over lunch instead.
Maybe.
But you don't, yeah. Maybe I'm just hungry. I don't know. You might have you might not meet with your manager for a month. So this is a great coaching opportunity for HR.
Yep.
And then, I mean, I'm a huge advocate and fan of stay interviews. We have this little info. In fact, I posted it recently. So, and Brent can put up my LinkedIn too. You're welcome to connect with me. But you can also take a look at my recent activity, and you'll see that I recently posted this to LinkedIn as well. But there is a lot of great benefits to running stay interviews. But stay interviews, I think we think of them as like something that's a big event. They don't have to be. You should work in some stay interview questions into your check-in with a new hire. And get managers to work it into coach them to work in some questions, because you want to know if there is risk with this new hire. Especially if you really like them, you want to know if there's risk, if they're going to leave, and if they are thinking about that, why. So have a stay interview mentality when you're running your check-ins and when you're coaching your business partners when they're speaking with their people managers.
The other connection to stay interviews here, Amy, is that if you are noticing from your turnover data where people are leaving, so maybe it's at 6 months, maybe it's at 9 months, maybe it's at 1 year, maybe it's you can strategically place the stay interviews. And if it is within that first year period, I would ask a lot about onboarding. Because there is a high likelihood that is one of the reasons why they are leaving, and you can get some really good insights into how you can make a more robust program.
And I love your idea about being strategic about it, because if you're seeing it and I think this intuitively, we all know this, but if you're seeing a lot of turnover with new hires in one department, I mentioned marketing before, there just tends to be a lot of turnover in marketing departments in general. But if you're seeing an excessive amount, don't try to fix a problem that isn't broken either, because there may be something that's not related to onboarding. Even though it's in the first year, it may be something going wrong with that particular department, that particular region. So maybe dig a little deeper on that part. Okay, so number 7 is to automate. You know, I absolutely love automation. And one of the things that I found is, especially being an entrepreneur and being out in the world a little bit more, because when I worked in a corporate environment, you're really focused on your organization. And that is the right thing to do, because you want to focus on the business and building the business. But you can tend to lose sight of some new technologies and new ways of doing things that may not be be seeping into your kind of feed on LinkedIn or anywhere else because you're so focused on your organization. But when we think about automation, there's so many things we can think about. In pre-boarding, there's a ton of opportunities to automate our communications with new hires. And I love, Sherry and I've always talked about using technology to enable human connection. So by no
Mm-hmm.
means are we trying to replace human connection when I'm talking about this. Any technology we use, especially when it comes to HR, should be used for the purpose of simplifying, but also to create an environment where you have more opportunity to interact with people and employees about the things that matter most.
Yep.
Get all that admin out of the way so that we can really focus on the people. And one of the things, I've talked about it before, but it's using email automation. We use email automation as part of our onboarding program, but I've noticed that this is a really underutilized
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for a lot of HR teams to use email automation platforms to be able to send new hires all of the things that every new hire needs for in your organization, or information and links to their programs or their payroll and all of these things. There's so many ways you can use it. If you have more questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. But this is a great way to get your employee to, again, get all that stuff out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have questions, actually, maybe better starting, instead of starting with me, start with your marketing department,
Yep.
because marketing departments are using these tools. You probably have subscriptions you don't know about that you could utilize internally as well as externally. So definitely check in with them, because there are a lot of great ways to use email automation so that you
Mm-hmm.
can take a lot of the work away, but also make that onboarding experience a lot better.
Can I just make a comment there?
Of course
I
you
love
can.
that. I think it's so critical. And I would say, communications is it has to be so strategic. And so I just, as you were talking, I was writing down, okay, well, what I would want to understand is, what does the person need to know?
Mm-hmm.
How are they best able to understand what they need to know? And then how can we reinforce the messaging? So in some cases, what they need to know might be a quick email, and then it's reinforced through a conversation. Or it could be completely different based on the complexity of the information that you're sharing. And so if you
Mm,
really think about, how important is this message? Is this something critical that they need to know? Then maybe I need to think differently about how it's being delivered. And mixing up how the messages are delivered also helps to be respectful of different people's learning styles as well.
yes. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, for sure. In fact, there's a whole session that we could run just on
Yeah.
automation opportunities and email automation. If anyone has a good idea for what we should call that to actually get people to attend it, I'd be really open to your recommendations, because I feel like that's a session we would plan and no one would come to, because it doesn't seem as exciting as it really is, and it doesn't
Yeah.
sound like it can make the big impact that it can make.
Yeah.
This one, like, I think almost every organization can identify with this, but get ahead of known issues. And by that, I mean, and I have all the tech here because the tech is so often the part we have so much problems with. If you know that people are often getting their equipment late, that's something the organization probably knows. Then identify, I mean, again, this is not all on HR. But if HR knows it's a problem, this is a great opportunity to get into your teams and to coach them and to get them to think ahead and to think through, because they've got a person hiring someone. Being a people manager is only part of their job, right?
Yeah.
So they don't think about, and as we said before, they could have not hired someone for 4 years. They don't know to go to the help desk and get a ticket to get equipment for their new hire. And then if they are late with that, or if they don't do it at all, then, well, until the person shows up, then think about how delayed that is, how bad it looks for that new hire. So if we know that getting IT equipment, again, it may have nothing to do with the IT department either. It could be that they're not getting the request in a timely fashion or the way they need it. And one of the technology has done so many amazing things, but one of the frustrating things it's done, it's like there's a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross when it comes to making requests for this type of equipment. Then you will maybe miss something and it throws everything off. And we
Yeah.
all know systems like that, especially in large organizations or organizations that have gone through significant change, like a merger or acquisition. All of the sort of admin side of things change, and it can make it really complicated. So figuring out a way that there's somehow HR can even check in with people leaders, make sure they're on the right track, and coach them so that they understand what needs to be done, because this could, getting your equipment on time, that's one of those feeling things.
Yeah.
Right? It also is really awkward not to get it because you're sitting there at an empty desk doing nothing and staring at a wall.
Yeah.
When you're trying to impress. Yeah. So number 9, this is a quick one, but benchmark. By benchmarking, what I mean is if you're running these pilots, if you're doing something, what you want to do is make sure that you're taking stock of where you are right now. Get that data to find out what the turnover rates are, what's costing the business, get that feedback from new hires, whether it's talking to them one-to-one, running a survey, get the feedback so that in 6 months and a year, once you've implemented some changes, you can get more feedback, relook at the numbers, and you are grounded in, did we improve? Which you will if you follow our advice. But you can, you'll get to look great to the organization, but that's not the only, of course, that's not the reason, but you're going to want to also make sure that you're tracking the impact of all of the changes you're making. And the only way you can do that is to run the survey. If you have a little survey you want to run, we run surveys as part of our onboarding program, but you can run a survey yourself internally. And then you can keep running that same survey every 6 months, every year with new hires to see if you're seeing more improvements in overall satisfaction, and any other feedback they might have for the program.
Yeah.
So then the last one, number 10, is creating a manager guide. And this is one I find that is really often missed. Yes, it's great. Like your new hire can see what's going on with their onboarding program and process, but the manager may not be able to see. I don't know, Sherry, if you've seen this in organizations where it's like, the manager doesn't seem to know what process the new hire is going through.
Right. And that's really hard. If you're supposed to provide them with guidance and support, and they're going through a process that you're completely disconnected with or disconnected from, that's quite challenging. We did actually experience that once, if you remember, Amy, when we were running one of the gap analysis, the managers were saying, but I don't even know what they're doing. I have no control over it. I don't understand it. I don't. And that was a really terrible feeling for the leaders. So this is huge. It helps consistency, right? With consistency throughout the organization. B, it helps remind managers who might not have done this for 4 years, this isn't their daily duty, what is important and what they can be doing. And then it creates that sense of, everybody's connected and that sense of trust. Same like branding, right? So
Absolutely.
this is an easy, I'm going to say easy in quotes because it's not easy, but it's relatively easy to implement fairly quickly so that everybody's on the same page.
And well, Sherry and I, just like a shameless plug for some of our work, but we actually did create a manager guide that is, this one can be broadly used in an organization and modified to what you want to use. Of course, we can't know what you're going to be specifically asking of new hires in your organization, but Brenda has a link where you can take a look at a sample of what this guide offers. And we've actually created a discount code for you, so it doesn't cost a lot to buy it, and you only have to buy it once for your whole organization. But we'll leave that discount code open for a week, So there should be 2 links, one for the look inside, right, great, and then one where you can, and I'll send this as well in an email after the session. And you can again use this and modify it for your business, or you can create one on your own, but this is a great way to get started. It's a real quick win for your organization if you're looking to get something going right away. So you can look at all of that. And if you have any questions for us, just for me, then just send me a message and I will.
You know,
Um,
sorry, I'm jumping in here. You know what question came to my mind? Remember when I said the question is, am I being set up for success? I would say this is the same question. Am I being set up for success that I might ask if I'm a manager? And so HR demonstrating value to the organization, it's like, how can I help the manager be successful? And this is a really, really great way.
Yeah, to get started for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have some free resources for you to share, which you're welcome to utilize and download, and you're always welcome to reach out. But here's the data point someone was asking for in the Q&A. So there you have it. And I believe this is from Gallup. I actually have the source, and usually I put the sources on my slide. I missed this one, but I believe this data point is from Gallup. I recently also posted this on LinkedIn, and I did source I did put the source from it. So that is what you were looking for. So knowing this, if you want to reach out, you can reach out. In the comments, Brent's going to put a link to our running compassionate and effective layoffs. It's like an ebook. You can have access to that. That is free. So you can download that for free. Actually, if you're ever wondering if our content is free or paid, you'll get lots of warnings that it's going to be paid. Most of our content that we share with you is actually free. So don't worry about clicking on a link to check things out. You aren't getting charged for anything. Like, you will definitely know. We would never want you not to be aware of that.
First 30 is very generous in content.
Yes,
very generous.
We like to be, because we see ourselves, and Sherry and I feel this way too about our respective businesses, and our approach is we are building a community here, and we really do value that community. And so we want to be able to be as generous as possible. For a limited time, speaking of generosity, we're running a really cool employee onboarding pilot program with our technology. So we are going to work with clients, and we have a few signed up already, and you're not going to have to pay any upfront costs, and you can run the program so it would all be set up for you for nothing. And then you will have a monthly subscription fee to pay after that. But we want to partner with some clients as on our version 2.0. So this is an amazing opportunity, and it definitely won't last forever. So please reach out to me. Brent's going to share a link where you can book a call if you're interested in this. So you can book a call. Just let me know. There's a place to fill out what you'd like to talk to me about. Please fill that out just so I can come prepared to the discussion, because sometimes people just book meetings and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we talking about today? So it's always a surprise. So it is really nice to know that. And I would love to work with you if we feel it's the right fit. It's not going to be the right fit for everyone, and I totally understand that. And I'm sure you'll understand that as well. So as I said, Brent's going to put that link in there. And of course, you can connect with, if you have any questions now. I haven't, I never put this slide in.
Yeah, this is great.
So these are some of the organizations that we work with. I found that we're really building momentum, and it's great to see so many clients engaging with us and working with us, and we're really happy to see the business growth that we're experiencing, and we're so grateful to all of them. But if you have any questions, now is a good time to ask. You can also put any questions that you might have in the chat as well, and if you'd rather message us privately, that's fine too. Our email addresses are up there. I don't know, Brent, I can't remember the links that we have to share if I missed any links, like Sherry's and my LinkedIn would be a good one. So please feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. As I said, Sherry's always and you should follow Loft and First 30 as well on LinkedIn. Sherry's always posting really great stats and content as well through Loft, which I've really enjoyed seeing and helps me too. I think that's it, Sherry. Anything else that you
Mhm.
wanted to, any inspiration about onboarding that you wanted to share?
My inspiration would be get started because it's
Yes.
so critical. It really, really is. And I see time and time again where people feel overwhelmed and or the um the new hires are feeling like they're not getting what they need, or the HR person feels like it's all on their shoulders. But just
Mm-hmm.
get started, ask around, ask questions, take one concept and build a pilot program,
Mm-hmm.
benchmark it, and just keep running. Because
Mm-hmm.
this is, in my humble opinion, this is
Yeah.
one of the best things that you can do for your business, is
And
really
it's
invest in
fun. Like
onboarding.
it
And
is
it's
actually
fun.
fun if you do it right and you have a good team and you connect. And it's also a really
Mhm.
great way to connect with so many different people in the business as well.
Yes, that's
That you,
true.
yeah, yeah, because it starts, what I find with onboarding, it starts being a low visibility project and it very quickly becomes a very high visibility, high impact project. That's been our experience working with clients for sure.
I'd be
So,
curious to know if people have asked the senior leaders, what is one or two things that HR can support you with? Because I know in client organizations that I support, this for the last 2 years, this has been one of the top items on CEOs' lists.
yeah,
Whether they're
yeah.
sharing it or not, that has been my experience. So important to know.
Go talk to the leaders that started within the last 6 months, because
Yes.
often it's their onboarding experience that can be the precursor to
Mm.
doing more with onboarding, and they will be your advocate. They will be
Hmm.
the one to be the champion for refreshing and revamping the onboarding program. So that is another little hack that we
Yeah,
just
that's a
added, a
good
bonus
one. That's
hack.
a really
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, thank you
Number
again,
11.
everyone. Pardon me? Number
Number
11?
11.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Sherry. As always, I just love running these sessions with you.
So
And
fun.
thank you, Kamara, for joining, and
Thanks,
Brent
Kamara.
for supporting us with all the
Thank you,
links
Brent.
that we need. And you'll be getting more information from First 30 shortly with all the links again, so that you make sure you have them. And then also you'll get the recording within a week of the session as well.
Mhm.
So great to, well, I didn't get to see anybody except Sherry, but great to see you, all your names here.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Thank you for
hope to see you for
joining.
real soon.
Mhm.
Bye bye.
Take care, everyone.